I did a video recently where I talked about politics being broken, and
Yeah,
that there's no point in thinking that politics is going to fix the issues that we've got.
yeah,
And you reached out to me in an email saying, hey, strange that you should say that, but I have this, I've been developing, I think you called it the Unity Council manuscript. Is that right?
yeah. That's right. That's right. I've been undergoing an enormous rebirth of political thought as well as spirituality, which has sort of come together in the one thing where I've become so aware of everything going on, as many of us are, that it struck me that nobody's really moving forward. We're all falling for things that we're being given, particularly when it comes to politics, in that everyone that tries to come up with an alternative to what's currently happening ends up coming up with something that works in the exact same system when it's the system that's corrupt.
Sure. Sure.
Parliamentary democracy is a lie that's designed to remove everyone's power. But we've become so used to it over decades, well, over hundreds of years, over generations. It's almost like genetic memory that we must have leaders and we must have this system where we vote for someone once every 5 years, and then they can ignore us and make lots of money and do what they like to hurt us. But we've got full say because in 5 years' time, we can tick another box. Sure. It's nonsense. It's a lie. It's an out-and-out lie.
Absolutely.
And it slowly came to me that democracy was designed that way. The democracy died the day the first ever democratically elected government was formed. And they promptly formed a little committee from those that have been elected, walked into another room and shut the doors behind them. And so I've been trying to find another way of doing things with no voting whatsoever, but more democracy than people have ever known. And we don't need any leaders whatsoever.
Okay. What made you come up with that particular idea, this Unity Council manuscript, right? You're saying politics is broken. We know that, and it's becoming more and more apparent. I mean, it's in your face, obvious. Democracy's used like a spin word now. They use it, we must, protect democracy. And I don't even think anybody understands what that is anymore. Yeah. So what made you come up with this? What was your inspiration?
The inspiration came from simply seeing an old quote that utopias never work. And I often thought straight away, how do they know? As far as I can make out, all we've ever had is dystopia after dystopia, and the people that say utopias never work become very rich from the dystopias. They just don't want us to have one, have a utopia. There's got to be a way to have it. There's got to be a way to just get rid of them. And it was partially when I realised that after doing a little bit of research, discovering that the government is a for-profit organisation, the cabinet is a for-profit organisation, and even the office of the Prime Minister himself is a for-profit organisation. The police are a for-profit organisation.
Or corporations, yeah?
Yeah, corporations, sorry, yeah. And we've got to get rid of all that. And that's when I started thinking, we've got to go back to the old village halls. That's where the secret lies. And part of the distraction has been country. Because if people actually concentrate on their local area, then when they have to work between local areas to get things working, slowly that expands over the whole country as a byproduct.
Sure.
And then I looked at the pyramid of power, as is the political pyramid of power, where we're on the bottom, and I thought, what if we just turn that upside down and actually use two specific things that they've given us, that they've allowed us to have? They've given us an electoral register, and they've given us the internet. So if instead of voting for politicians, in each area, there's a drawing of the names of people on the from the names of the people on the electoral register to actually form a bit of a council, and that's the Unity Council. The top is the village hall, and that's everybody in the country. And all these little areas have their own Unity Council, but they're below them. They go off, they do what's needed in the area, and they feed it back. And it's the village hall that votes on it. And if you can't get to that meeting, it's all on the internet. But the representatives have no power whatsoever. They can have the negotiations, but they can't rubber stamp anything. That can only be done at the village hall level. Now, the thing is that a lot of people think to themselves, oh, but I couldn't do that because I haven't got any political experience. I don't know anything about politics. And that's when it started to really go on. Well, what is politics? What is politics, really? To say to someone that they have no political experience is a nonsense, because all politics is having a chat and coming to an agreement.
Sure.
That's it. There's no secret in it. There's no such thing as political science. It's having a chat and coming to an agreement. And ever since a baby cries for food, from then onwards, the rest of your life, you're indulging in politics of a form every single day of your life. You have a need, you have to ask for it and have a conversation to get it. Anyone and everyone does it all the time. And then I thought, all these people in Westminster, we only want them to do 4 things, and they don't do any of them. We want them to represent the constituency and its requirements and needs. Point 1. Point 2, we want them to facilitate what that village needs. 3, we need them to coordinate it. Just, okay, so I've arranged that we can have this built there at such and such a time. These are the companies that are tendered for it, and they can coordinate. That's point 4. They tell the people what exactly they're doing. They don't do any of this at the moment.
No,
but that's what that Unity Council would be doing. But the way it takes it out of the hands of the corporations, and it removes the corporations, it removes career politicians, it removes big business, it removes big pharma, it removes the Freemasons, is that every 3 years, there's another, it's every 2 years, there's another draw of names. And that initial council that you had for your village, a third of that, it's thank you, you're being replaced now by this new third that's coming up. The second third stays on for another 2 years. And these are randomly drawn. Who stays is randomly drawn.
Okay.
And that's so there's continuity over the projects. And that final third goes down, because it's always down, to the next level, which is like the local city, where all the boroughs are now on the one bit. And then again, a couple of years later, we have the same thing again, where it's just a third removed, a third come up, a third kept for a third come up, a third kept for continuity, and a third moved down a level. And that is where, after 6 years, we've got the byproduct of the national government effectively, but they can't actually decide anything. The decisions have to be taken back up at the village hall level.
Okay.
And that gives us equality for everyone. The biggest problem in society, the biggest cause of anger, is the lack of voice. Nobody's listening. This guarantees that everything that affects you, everyone is listening, because it's you have the same voice as everyone else at that village level hall.
Sure.
And that's the one you're working on. About national stuff, that comes much later, when it's things that need to be coordinated across the country, which is not the majority of stuff that people are angry about.
Sure.
I mean, I sat here, I'm living in Cornwall, and I keep thinking, why on earth is a couple of billion being spent on HS2, which isn't going to serve Cornwall at all? when I can barely afford a dozen eggs and no one gives a damn.
Mm-hmm.
So,
sure.
And it stops all of that sort of stuff. It removes the authoritarian hand, and there are no leaders. At the start of each meeting, and you can have them every single night, but at the start of every single meeting, you just elect your chairman for that meeting. That's the nearest there is to a leader.
Mm-hmm.
The initial Unity Council, that first level down, they'll set the agenda because everything that is being discussed at every level afterwards has actually gone through them to facilitate, coordinate, represent, and communicate. And that's all they're doing at every level down. And then there's the whole thing of capital cities. That's gone because you don't need them anymore.
Sure.
All you need, you don't need this building with all the flowery language, because if we're removing the elites, if you've got a capital city, the elites have still got their base where they can affect the politics that's going on. But if there's no reason under this to have a permanent capital city, it can move around exactly the same way. The same machine that draws those names from the electoral register that are going to serve at each level draws out the name of a different city every 3 years, which is a term and a half in the cycle that I've suggested, which means that today, capital of England is the capital of the UK is London. Tomorrow it could be Aberdeen. Next year it could be Aberdeen. It could be Tobermory. It could be Swansea. It could be Truro. It could be Belfast. It could be Derry. It could be anywhere that's big enough, because all you really need is a hotel with a conference room.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. But what you don't have is elites gathering, because they've got to move house every 3 years if they want to do that.
Sure.
They've got to keep moving house if they want to have control again.
All right, so let me ask you a few questions on that. So basically, all of the details that because you've done this Unity.
I'll just spout it out a skeleton quickly.
Manuscript. We're going to put this in the video details so you can download it if you're interested. If you want to read, because Steve's gone into major detail with this. But let's kind of look on a more macro scale. So I think we're both in agreement that politics is dead. It's dying. It's on its arse. And it's interesting in this age of great awakening in which we find ourselves. What I'm aware of is that one of the easiest conversations I can have with somebody who's not awake yet or in the process of waking up is on politics and saying, "It's dreadful, isn't it?" And they say, "Yes, it's dreadful." And we've always complained about politics, but I've never heard people so disillusioned and disappointed about politics as they are. I mean, everywhere we look, all we see is corruption, abuse of power, and stealing of money. Basically, our money, and increasing of our costs and stealing our money. So, this is you've got this Unity Council manuscript. It really is a utopia. Okay, and obviously it's an idea, it's a framework. I've been in the communications that I have often with my guides and things like that. They always have said, we're going to go back to local governance.
Yeah.
They've always said it's going to be local governance, and then something that's going to coordinate on a bigger scale. It really is what you've talked about, this downward rather than the upward. Yeah. That would make
more elites. No more elites.
No more elites. Yeah. Let them go off in the spaceship somewhere else.
Yeah.
All right. The question is, how many steps do you think that there are to get there? What has to happen? Because boy, we've still got a very, very big network that has been around, as you say, for centuries.
Yeah.
What are the steps to shift that, do you think?
Then we need to start. Okay, the first initial acknowledgement is pressure groups to try and get enough people behind this to get a referendum with the whole country knowing about it.
Okay.
But the whole country has to know about it in order to get a referendum. Unfortunately, they're never going to give us a referendum in that way through the ballot box. So basically, you need someone to hack into the electoral register, copy it, and just start doing it anyway. And then actually everyone acknowledging, no, you are a for-profit corporation. You don't have any power over us officially, because you're not what we've voted for. You've hidden too much. You haven't been open. Therefore, your entire system of government is completely invalid. They have hidden so much of the actual facts behind it that it can't possibly have power over people, because they have to be open about what you're voting for. And they have always hidden that you're actually giving up all of your power and all of your responsibility over your entire life to a business. What at the end of the day is a private business, not to a democratically elected government.
Sure.
But it's the making people aware of it all. That's the hard part.
I like what you said.
So many people ignore it. So many people just ignore it, and they say, "Yeah, but that's what we vote for them for." And like, oh,
that's true. We've got a mentality, an old mentality, and we've got a new mentality. It's the people who haven't quite awakened to what's happening that say, but that's what their job is. That we just vote and they do all this stuff, and we're fully represented. But there's a vast swathe of people now that know that's a load of rubbish. That's a lie. What I've just ticked the big what you said. We need to start doing it anyway ourselves. One of the other messages that I get is that what's going to happen is not so much like a big rebellion. It's going to be more that groups of people turn away from the system and just start managing themselves anyway. And whether that be under the umbrella of common law or whatever they do that with, but start doing it anyway, rather than trying to rebel. Because normally, I mean, in looking back in the past, rebellions have always been, they just take over them. And you think you're having a rebellion, and you actually end up being, it's like Animal Farm, isn't it? Let's have a rebellion, and then you end up with exactly the same thing. So I think that's a definite move that people just start getting together on a small scale, in a local scale. But you've got to have awakened people. Have you seen what happens when non-awakened people get together? It's a disaster. It's a disaster. But awakened people, I mean, we've had lots of groups that we've formed here in Spain. When you get together with people who are awakened, it's beautiful. And everyone's got different ideas, but everyone's going, yeah, that's fine. What do you think? I don't know. Well, that's interesting. And much better than, no, that's wrong because you're conservative and I'm a Labour or whatever, There's division.
If only people could see beyond blue and red.
Oh, sure. It's part of the trick, isn't it, Steve? It's to keep everything in our society is set up to divide. Every single aspect of our society is division, always division, because that's what keeps us easy to control.
And it's the same party, though.
Of course, it is.
Same party. If it just, again, it's doing research and understanding that the people that really run the Conservative Party, or the Democrat Party, or the parties in France and Spain, whatever, the ones that run the blue actually are the same people running the red.
Same people. Of course.
You basically get the same thing. And I've been saying to people for the last couple of years, since the last Davos meeting, have you never bothered to wonder why the leaders of the opposition of each country are also invited to Davos? So Obama was at the last one. Why would they be inviting people that aren't in power? Because they're part of the same organization. That's why.
Of course.
They just don't.
Of course. I mean, it's, there's an expression here in Spain, and the expression says white and in a bottle. And it's like, it's patently obvious, but it's only obvious to those who can see. And those who, there's nobody more blind than somebody who doesn't want to see. how would you control? I've heard things like, voting on blockchain so that it can't be fiddled with.
Mm.
With your system, how could fiddling be prevented?
Well, the easiest way to do that, I think, is to make sure that every single person in each area only has codes that access their area for a start, and they're personalized codes. And any code from anywhere else in the country can't get in. They've got to have someone's specific personal code to get in.
Sure.
But other than that, I'm not sure. Like I say, I was doing the skeleton and the structure rather than
absolutely
the ins and outs. There are people that know far more about computers than me who can sort them out. And that's the same with the how would it be financed. I'm not an economist. I don't know that bit. But every area has got accountants and people that are economists living in them.
Sure, yeah.
And there is nothing at all to stop each one of the village halls organising committees of experts from the area that can sort out those bits for the area. I mean, I think that these ridiculous high taxes and whatever that we've got, well, if everyone's just paying like £10 a month to the village hall, to their local community, they've suddenly got one heck of a budget coming in. Because every resident, instead of paying income tax, they're paying £10 a month to this.
Sure.
Instead of hundreds a week in some cases.
Have you had a chance to listen to Michael Tellinger talk about his one small town structure?
I haven't seen that one yet.
Right.
I read the book Ubuntu a few years ago.
Yeah.
I've still got it on my shelf. I love it.
Sure.
But I've been meaning to catch up with the chat you've done with him.
He's done. I didn't do a chat, but Richard Vobes did. Richard Vobes did a chat. Well worth listening to. But he was talking about the financial aspect of it, because in his idea of one small town, people don't. It isn't so much money; it's time. They give the time to work on projects that actually earn money for that small group. So I think in terms of, I think the finances are probably the least of our concerns, because as you say, each person is giving God knows what. Each catchment is giving God knows what to the government for them to do God knows what with. So I don't think the money would be an issue. What do you think? Because you're obviously a thinking man and an analyst on things like that. What do you think in terms of where we are now? Your idea of where you would like mankind to be? What's the period of time? How long would this take us, do you think?
If we could get this specific model up and running, 10 years, and we've got a global council.
Right.
Because then 6 years national.
Yeah.
Another 2 years on top of that, and you've got a continental grouping of all of those countries. 2 years on top of that, you've got the smallest of the lot at the very bottom that is taking from each continent to produce this little bunch of people here. And so it could be that year one, you've got we've got a housewife from Aberystwyth on her local council. Well, there's nothing to stop a housewife from Aberystwyth passing right the way down all of those levels to being on a global council within 10 years. That's not bad for a housewife from Aberystwyth who's probably been written off most of her life, but who can argue, because that's all we want, is people that can argue.
Sure.
That's all it needs. And all they'd be doing at that level, really, when it comes down to it, it comes down to what do we really need a global council for? Disaster relief and shipping would be the main things that they'd really be looking at. Organising, coordinating any disaster relief, making sure that shipping across the globe works fine, using the train back up to each village hall, making sure that everyone can have what they need and what's been filtered down to them as the needs for this continent, for this country, for this county, for this village.
Okay. Okay. And just so I'm clear, are you saying that these people who were chosen are chosen randomly each time?
They're chosen randomly by the electoral register, exactly the same as jury service.
Okay.
And they can turn it down. If they want, they can turn it down. But it also means, and this is one of the other things where I said about using the internet, all meetings are filmed. Right. As you go down that, you've all got access to exactly what your representative is saying, because every meeting must be filmed. And if you don't think they're doing a good enough job, you can recall them like that, same day. That's it. We're just redraw another name out to begin the chain and then drop them down.
Yeah, that sounds fair enough, especially that they can say, hey, no, this is not for me, because obviously some people wouldn't want that responsibility, wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And where we are at the moment, I think, is you can't change things by fighting an existing reality. To change something, you have to create a model that makes that model obsolete. If we can start this at some point, that was Buckminster Fuller. If this can get started, then we don't even need the rebellion, because slowly and surely, as this came together, all that lot in Westminster, you'd just be phasing them out.
Sure.
They'd literally just be phased out. Where, no, sorry, we don't live in your existence anymore. We don't live in your world anymore. We live on New Earth now. This is New Earth. That's the old world, and you're gone. We're not playing anymore.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And that's it. And suddenly there's equanimity across every country. Everywhere that takes this on, everyone has the exact same voice. I live in St Austell, and I am not, because I'm creating the model, going to be some sort of king or ruler or anything. I'm just one voice, one person with one vote in my area. That's it. And that's all anyone is. That's all anyone has. Any decisions made, just come back up. I can vote on them in my area. Mm-hmm. And things that don't affect my area, I don't have a vote on, because they don't concern me. If people in Wolverhampton want to ban Mars bars, they can. If people in Kirby want to make Morris dancing on a Wednesday tea time compulsory, they can. You only really vote on what's happening in your area. And currently they've got us worrying about the whole country, because it's so much easier to spread fear. With all of that, because they're just distracting you. Oh, look over there. Oh, there's terrible things going on over there. How do you know they're really going on over there?
Sure. What about this, Steve? So in terms of voting, because you're using the electoral register, people voting, what would be the swing then for a yes? Would it be 51%, or what would it be?
51% is a majority. That, as far as I'm concerned, really, though, would be up to each area as to what they're going to consider for their...
Okay, so they can vote on what they wanted as their swing.
Yeah, as their swing line. Because, as I say, I have no desire to become a dictator. I don't want to end up with an ism after my name like Marx. No, this is here's a skeleton, here's a structure, guys. Take it and run with it and build on it. Make it work. I'm not going to make set in stone decisions on things like that. I might make some suggestions until it's actually set up, but that is all. And I think that I'd probably be asked for a lot of suggestions anyway, as it all butt stops here. If it goes wrong, I've just screwed up the world. Sorry, guys.
But like everything, it's a suck it and see, isn't it? You've got to try it before you know whether it's going to run.
Yeah, we've got to try something new.
But the bottom line is, Steve, it can't be much worse than what it is now. It can't be messed up much more than it is now. I have a pretty shit plan to mess it up worse than it is now.
Yeah. I think that giving everyone the same voice makes it 10 times better than what we've got now at worst. Sure. At its very worst, it's still 10 times better than what we've got now. Absolutely.
Unfortunately, some people have been fooled into thinking that they don't know enough to make those kind of decisions.
That's the political science that they lie about.
Of course it is, yeah.
That's that bit they lie about. It doesn't exist. It's a nonsense. It's a lie. Everyone knows the same, because everyone can have an argument. And no matter what people actually thought of her as a person, don't forget Maggie Thatcher, who was arguably one of the most successful prime ministers, no matter what, during the first 6 years of her reign. Never, let's forget about the other bit. But during those first 6 years, don't forget, she was a shopkeeper's daughter.
Sure.
She didn't have this upbringing. She didn't go to the women's equivalent of Eton, where all these people magically spring from. Oh, you went to Eton, you're in the cabinet.
Sure, yeah.
No, it's just elitism on steroids. And no one should have that sort of thing. And like I say, this gets rid of career politicians. No more Kenneth Clark spending 40 years drinking whiskey. No more Jacob Rees-Mogg laying on the banquets in Parliament. No, that's gone. And no more parliamentary flowery language. So people don't really know what's going on, what they're talking.
And so nothing gets done because they're too busy following these flowery language. A couple of things, Steve, that come to mind as you're talking about this. One is that talking about people and are people capable of managing themselves. If you go around and you talk to people, which I do all the time, and most people are very, very capable of telling you what they want in life. And when they tell you what they want, it's rarely, something incredible. It's normally, I want a happy life. I want to be left alone. I want to enjoy my family. I want to be able to have money enough to do what I want to do. I want to travel, just basic stuff, nothing untoward. So I think most people know what we want. We don't want anything particularly special. And what was the second point? There was something but yeah, I think the only fly in the ointment at the moment, one of them, many, is the way that the television is used to set people against one another. The reason people can't reach consensus is because the binary, we're in a binary world. Are you a 1 or are you a 0? If you're a 0, you're a twat. And if you're a 1, you're my mate. And that's where the things like the television has got people, even down to simple, we're going to have a debate. Do you think this is a good idea or not? Well, I don't. And they put on these talking heads that confuse people. Whereas if that were taken away, then people would actually be able to start thinking for themselves and realizing that it ain't that complicated.
An entire personal thing is under this system. I'd actually have television banned from politics. Under this system, it's got nothing to do with television. You go online for your local village hall meeting, or you go to your local village hall meeting. They can't scare you because they're not allowed to. They're not allowed anywhere near it anymore. But that, as I say, that's up to each thing. It's not a set in stone thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's round this off then. Right. So it would take 10 years to get a world unity council. All right.
And it'd be hard. It'd be hard because there'd be people trying to take control of every village hall. It would not be. It's not all sunshine and unicorns from the word go. It would be difficult because you've got to deal with people's egos first.
Yeah.
And leadership always leads to ego.
Mm-hmm. Well, you see, the way I look at it is this: we are, from a very spiritual angle, Steve, we are going through a great awakening where people are going to be leaving behind the egos and they're going to be upgrading the egos. So it's going to go hand in hand anyway. A different kind of people are going to be moving forward. People who want something very different, who aren't interested in being the best and the number one and, making a name for themselves. People who just want to be happy and live with a family and enjoy life, So, question. What we're going to do to get this message out, all right, you're talking to me and I've got a very small amount of subscribers. What we're going to do to get this message out? How do we get this into the hands of the people who need it?
We keep doing everything we can to make sure people are aware of it. We share it wherever we can. Gordon is putting the PFD on the information thing. Take it, copy it, send it to everyone you know. Read it. Everyone you know that might be interested, everyone that won't be interested. If you want to print some off and give them to Bert Smith down the pub, who they're the people that have always had the answers. and that's why the establishment want the pubs shut. They're trying to get rid of us from pubs because that was where people always met. In every country, the equivalent of the pub is where people met and put the world to rights, and they were right. But the real downfall was always, we can't stand because we can't afford it. Why should you have to pay to stand for election and risk losing all of your money, which the working classes can't afford to do?
Sure.
And then they'll always get attacked by the media, Freemason.
You've got to have a lot of money if you want to be a politician. You've got to have a lot of money to get
exactly.
started.
That's something else that keeps people out of politics that really should be in the politics. Like I say, the Bert Smiths down the Nag's Head. That is the sort of person that should have always been involved in politics. But this actually has the Bert Smiths from the Nag's Head actually involved properly in it. Absolutely. It removes the need for money in politics. We don't need it.
Okay. Well, Steve, I think it's, I don't know what the long-term future is going to be like. I think it's going to be something very, very different. But I've always said we need a transition. We need something that's going to help us to transition, because what we've got is dreadful. We need something that's going to help us, and this is beautiful. So yeah, I'll put the PDF in the information. I believe that the written word, the word itself is a creation, so you've created a potential future just there. So it's just a matter of, sharing it.
Pipeline's there. Let's make it. Let's make it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you reaching out to me, and let's see how we go. Maybe we can meet up in a few months and have a rejiggle and a re-talk about it. Yeah,
it'll probably look very different by then, because I expect I will have had a few people's opinions to help reconstruct bits, and we might have something a little more solid.
Absolutely.
You
good.
Like the best for everyone.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Steve, and we'll see you again. All right.
Thank you, Gordon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.